on flinttalkradio.com. I do understand we have some additional viewers this afternoon from YouTube, and we want you to stay tuned to one of the several programs that come on flinttalkradio.com. There are about 9 programs that are airing from the studio, and they are some of the most dynamic programs I think you'll find anywhere on podcast productions. I'm George Moss, the host of this program, and we come on every Monday from 2 o'clock to 3 on flinttalkradio.com. And I normally would have with me on the second and fourth Mondays of each month, our co-host is Ms. Catherine Hunter Williams, who is here twice a month. And then this afternoon, we'll have a guest in the studio, Mr. Jonathan Ettinger, once he arrives in studio. But we wanted to start the program at 2 o'clock. And I was telling John, who is our technician, our janitor, the snow remover, the jack of all trades, I was telling John that we want to start the program at 2 o'clock because we are flinttalkradio.com, and this is not CNN. So that's why we're starting at 2, and we wait for our guest to arrive. And once he arrives, we will interview him on a very dynamic book that he wrote called Neither Living Nor Dead. And we're going to be talking about a citizen's user's guide to the United States Constitution. Before he gets here, we might as well talk about a few other things and get that out of the way. One of which is a question that was asked to me this morning as I was on the Facebook. And one of my friends wrote and said, look, they're talking about amending the Constitution, giving the Constitution a 28th amendment. And this amendment would be one that will, in fact, balance the budget. And he asked me what I thought about it if the amendment was, in fact, dynamic enough in order to change any loopholes, any way of getting around the language. What would that, in fact, amount to, and would it be effective? And I told him that this is nothing other than another distraction on the part of these politicians. First of all, you have to keep in mind that we have 27 amendments to the Constitution as it stands, and they're not following any of those amendments. It's as if they're going to add to a document that they have, in fact, dismissed. And how do I take them seriously in terms of them adding to a document that they're not even following in Washington, D.C.? In fact, Walter Williams, the professor at Georgetown University, the great economist and columnist, Walter E. Williams, who has been, I think, at that esteemed university for more than 40 years, said that 2/3 of the things that Congress is, in fact, doing are not authorized by the Constitution. So I don't take it seriously. And I was telling this friend of mine on Facebook this morning that I think that's nothing other than a distraction. You have to keep in mind that in 2010, 25% of the office holders in the Congress were turned out of the Congress, and 87 Tea Partiers came into that body, and nothing has really dramatically changed in terms of how Congress does its business. And many people are frustrated with John Boehner, who came in with the idea we're going to have something similar to what they had in 1992, 1994, when they came in, Republican Party came in with the contract for America, which ended up being a contract on America more than anything else, because none of those things that they were promised they were going to do once they got in power, that they in fact do. And so Boehner comes in with something that's less than a contract, but something similar to it, the idea of a pledge to America. And now that they were installed in office January the 5th, and they've been in there now going on, 2 months, a little bit more than 2 months. And we haven't seen anything other than business as usual. And Boehner, who promised that they were going to get this budget under control, which is where most of our concern is. This budget is out of control. We don't want to be passing down to our grandchildren, our children and grandchildren, a deficit that's exploding all over the place. And now they're talking about raising even higher from the $14.3 trillion debt ceiling that it is right now. They're not serious. And this idea that you had them proposing, and they're now proposing as an amendment to make them do their jobs, is really, when you think about it, it's really insulting that these persons who are the ones who swear to uphold the law have to be made to follow the law of the United States. You have to pass an amendment to make them do that which they've already pledged to do. I don't take it seriously. Just like I don't take, for example, anything serious about the 4 billion that they found to cut for the government to stay open 2 more weeks. What is this other than a charade? $4 billion. Let's understand that the proposal of the president is to pass a budget of $3.75 trillion, $1.5 trillion of which we don't have, which means that of the money that will be spent over the amount of money we have, and we don't have 1.5 trillion of it, it means then that we'd have to, in fact, borrow that, which we're already borrowing 42 cents of every dollar that the federal government spends. And so we'd have to borrow that. And they want to cut the budget by $4 billion. And you're talking about an expenditure that goes beyond what we're taking in of 1.5 trillion. Somebody do the math out there. If you have a $1.5 trillion overrun and you're cutting the budget by $4 billion, what they gave to American people this last to keep the government open 2 more weeks. And a lot of us are asking, why keep the government open if they continue these charades as if they're actually making some serious move and cutting down expenditures? If you take $4 billion, and let's say you do that every 2 weeks, that's what some of them are proposing, that we will do it incrementally. Every 2 weeks, we'll pass another budget. We'll cut the budget by $4 billion, and we will then allow the government to then stay open another 2 weeks, and you continue to do it. Well, that means then you're doing that over a period of 52, let's say you do it all year. So that means then you have 25 different times that you do it. 26 if you say then you're going to do 52 weeks. So then what does that come out to? It comes out to a $100 billion cut. And that's nothing other than what they proposed in the first place. But to make the American people feel they're actually making some inroads into the budget and to continue to pull the wool over not just our eyes, but the wool over our entire head, they're making it appear that they're doing something serious. They're not serious. And this idea of having an amendment that's going to bring about the budgetary restraint that we need is an insult to us. We elected the representative to go up there and do that which is right for the country, not right for their political careers. I do understand that our guest has arrived, and now that he's here, we won't delay any longer. We want Jonathan Ettinger to know that we are the FlintTalkRadio.com. We're not CNN, so we start on time around here.
Oh, my apologies. Held up elsewhere.
I was saying that earlier, that we are not we're not the cable companies that are making all that money and all that loot, but we try. We're number 2, so we have to try harder. Let me introduce our guest this afternoon. We're very glad to have him with us. And I told Jonathan, this is Jonathan Ettinger. And I told Jonathan I would have him back once I had read his book. And so now that I have him back, let's see if anybody out there took geometry class where they say if A is equal to B and then B is equal to C, how they say A is equal to C. So if I said I was going to have him back after I read the book and he's back now, what does that mean? It means I read the book. That's right. So Jonathan, it's good to have you back.
Well, thank you, George.
And let me tell you what I think we should do after having read your book. I think we need to do a trilogy.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I think the book is so good, it's such an exciting read, that I think we need to divide it up into 3 segments, with the first segment being the prologue. And then we're going to do the original 7 articles of the Constitution.
Okay.
And Jonathan takes us through what we would have been taught in the classrooms where amendments to the Constitution. Jonathan is going to say these are just additional amendments. So these are additional articles. So we will take those additional articles then in the 3rd episode. So I hope you can do 2 more programs with us, because I want to go through the book and take our time in going through it.
Hey, I can do 3 more if you really want. So.
Okay, we may take that because we may do some old rides here. We'll see how it goes. First of all, let me just kind of let you catch your breath.
I'm good.
Where are you coming from? The university?
I was over at school meeting with some professors, yeah.
Has anyone at the university used your book?
Not in any professional capacity, but I haven't really gotten word out enough amongst them yet. So.
Okay. Well, I have some questions for you. The book is called Neither Living Nor Dead, and I just love that title. Why don't you tell us again why you titled this book Neither Living Nor Dead?
Well, because the point of the book is reading and understanding the Constitution, and unfortunately, the 2 most common approaches people take to it are either to, 1, dismiss it as dead just because it's old, and I mean, barely over 200 years, why does that make it invalid? Or they'll say, oh, no, we follow it, but here's what it means. They take a, quote, living document approach, where they try to say, well, this word says this, and here's what it means today. It's like, no, you can't go by what it means today, because that's leaving everyone open to reinterpret the law for themselves, which is ultimately undoing the very point behind having a law.
Here's what you said in the first paragraph of the prologue, and I want to ask you if this is what you're referencing at this point. You said before examining the specific contents of the Constitution of the United States, it is important to understand the diametric approaches to misapplying its articles and provisions. And it seems like in that first paragraph, you are talking about a benign kind of thing that goes on in terms of its interpretation, where it's not purposeful, just people don't understand what the document is. And then it looks like that you're also saying the diametric aspect of it being misapplied is those who purposely then do the same. It amounts to the same thing, but some persons are doing it in a more purposeful way.
Yeah, some do it with more malicious intent, and others just because that's what they've been told, so that's what they follow.
Do you think that? We have now? You're saying people who have done that have done this. Some of them have done it maliciously. What persons come to mind when you say that?
Well, the simplest way would be if you wanted to define it by a particular context, which particular section of it. But looking at it in a broader approach, I mean, well, the simplest one I say, go with FDR and his whole New Deal approach. Because, I mean, look at the New Deal and says, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And so many of them, his whole idea for a second Bill of Rights was practically reading straight out of Communist Manifesto, not anything found in the U.S. Constitution. And the only way you can go and do these things is if you're either, one, blatantly ignoring the Constitution as it exists, or two, deciding to play with the language a little bit and say, well, here's what I think it means, so here's how we can get around that one.
I think that I would have said earlier that those that in the Congress and are not abiding by the qualifications that are in the Constitution, those things restraining power, I would have said that that would probably be all of the congressmen that are in fact violating it. They're doing it out of malicious intent. But then when I started listening to these congressmen, and I began to see how they don't even seem to know what's in the document.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about John Lewis, for example, who stated that when they asked him what gives you the power to pass the health care bill and what authority is there allowed under the Constitution, he said it is in the preamble to the Constitution where they talk about the pursuit of happiness. So, I mean, but let me ask you, is that a malicious intent in terms of the willful, you know how you say sometimes willful ignorance, where they don't know, but do they want to know? Isn't that kind of like, would you say that's benign, or is that?
Well, that depends on how much benefit of the doubt you want to give to the individual saying it, because are they really that blind and ignorant, or are they just trying to cover for themselves? And you can't be sure which one it is.
Yeah, I think with John Lewis, I could say it's probably a combination of both. But yeah, that's bothersome though, because we have persons that's been in the Congress for a number of years, and they're saying things like for example, Schumer was saying that the separation of powers consists of the House, the Senate, and the President.
Yeah, I heard that one.
And that is.
By the way, we just want the YouTube viewers to know that they have like 1 more minute to watch it here, and then they can always catch it in full at flinttalkradio.com, okay?
Yes, let me reiterate that point too. We have some viewers on YouTube for the first 15 minutes of the program, Jonathan.
Okay,
and we're going to, and it's going to shut off on YouTube, and they can switch over to flinttalkradio.com. So hope you will stay tuned for the last 45 minutes of the segment. If you want to switch over to flinttalkradio.com, you can pick up the rest of the program, the last 45 minutes of it at that time. We're very happy to have with us Jon Ettinger. I interviewed him once before, and I invited him back on 3 additional shows because the book is too profound to do in one session. And so we're going to do this session and then 2 more that follows this, be coming at you every 2 weeks at that point. So let's go back to what you were saying then.